My name's Steve Smith. I'm our senator in District 23. District 23 is pretty much all of Pinal County for the most part. So that is until the lines get redrawn again here in the next couple weeks. I guess what I kind of like to do is I'm going to give you a couple minute background about me, and then I'll go over I think some of the great things that we did in the legislature this session, and then maybe what I did personally, and then kind of what we're looking forward to next session. Does that sound good? Cool. All right. So, 10 seconds about me. I moved here from Michigan about a dozen years ago. I graduated from Michigan State with a degree in marketing and business law, and graduated with honors, and I've always been in business my whole life. So, my political career kind of started at 9/11. That's when I knew everything changed. That's when I knew something had to be done to just defend and protect and always kind of do your part as an American. So, I say I bleed red, white, and blue, and it's just this is the greatest country in the history of the world. It's that simple. So each and every one of us, at whatever level it is, need to always understand that and do that. And that's kind of what got me into politics eventually. So in my district, there was a woman by the name of Rebecca Rios who I defeated for this Senate seat. Now, just so you know the power of the people. The Rios family, going back to her father, who's currently on the Board of Supervisors, and they held that Senate seat for about 30 years. Because of people like you who actually care and go out and knock on doors and make phone calls and tell your friends and neighbors and family to get out and do something, I'm the first Republican senator in that district since statehood.
Damn fine one, I must say.
But again, I say, people say, well, how'd you do it? And I say, two reasons. God and people like you. It's that simple, really. On all my campaign stand, if you know a little bit about me, I stand for God, family, and country, and I make no bones about it. I'm fully aware of the founding of this nation and what our founding fathers said about God and the importance that it plays in politics. Amen. Simple. But again, it's people like you that put people like me in office. And for the first time in Arizona's history, we have supermajorities in the Senate and in the House. Never happened before. And because of that, yeah, we passed some phenomenal legislation last year. So I'll kind of get into that. Some main highlights that we did in both the Senate and the House and what the governor ultimately signed were, I think, three big things. The first thing we did was we wanted to put together a good jobs bill. We understood when we went there in January, it's the economy. We need to make sure Arizona is on track to be competitive, not just in the West, but throughout the country. So literally one of the first bills that we worked on and passed was the jobs bill, the economic recovery package for Arizona. And that legislation moved Arizona from about last in the West in terms of attractiveness and competitiveness to businesses to about third. Yeah, I know. I said, why aren't we first? For a lot of different reasons. The governor kind of kept us at 3. A lot of that had to do with their 1-cent sales tax, and we couldn't do things as aggressive as we wanted to immediately. Rest assured, though, good piece of legislation that came out. And again, I think it's going to ultimately, very, very, very much so, help Arizona not only keep the businesses that we have here, keep our economic community growing, but of course attracting new companies and businesses here too. We passed out of the legislature a great backup to that jobs bill. It was SB 1041, Senate Bill 1041, that helped more of the rural communities too. It was almost like the jobs bill light. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed it. I guess I'm still really not sure why, but we're gonna bring that back next session too, and hopefully try to get another infusion. And I want things done a lot quicker. Some of the things in the job bills don't take effect for another year or two, and again, we're scratching our heads saying, well, can't we just do it now? And for a lot of reasons I can get into if you want me to, it didn't. But that being said, good piece of legislation. Of course, it flew through the House and Senate, and the governor signed it. So first bill, great job, I think, by the governor as a whole and the legislature as a whole for signing that. Very, very, very important for Arizona. Second thing that we did, Arizona was broke. Yeah, we were about $1 billion in debt going into the session. And when we got the first draft of the budget, we knew the budget, it was going to be a fight. We knew that. When we got the first draft of it, it had your usual budget gimmicks all rolled into it. You have what's called your K through 12 rollover, which is kind of like it's fudging the numbers. Let's just put it that way. You borrow money from one pot, you stick it in another, and then it looks like we were all solvent, but then you put the money back in that pot. Does that make sense? And that was to the tune of about $300 million. Then they had all these little gimmicks in there, and we said, yeah, no thank you. So we're going to have a straight, balanced budget with no gimmicks, and we made over $1 billion in hard cuts, and for the first time in years, a decade, Arizona is now going to be operating on the black, which is pretty darn special. So of course, the Democrats fought us every step of the way, but that's what we expect, right? But so the balanced budget, key, enormous, and the reason we had to get it right now, because people said, well, do it next session. We said, no, you have to get it right now because two really important things happen in the next 2 years. The governor's 1 cent sales tax comes off. We're going to lose about $1 billion in revenue. And then you can thank President Obama because Obamacare is scheduled to be ushered in shortly thereafter, which is going to cost the state untold hundreds of millions of dollars. So we said if there's a time to balance the budget, it is now so we can prepare for this stuff in the future. So that's what we did. And then finally, another great thing that we passed was pension reform. You know, we went in our pension program. I was one of 2 senators selected by President Pierce to initially start working on this project. We were going to be insolvent for all of our police, fire, I mean, everybody. We were at about 65% funded pension. It was just, we were going to zero. So we went in, we sat down with all the stakeholders, we got a good, mutually agreed upon pension program reform put in. Thankfully now, because of those reforms, our pension program will be there and will be solid, and will be there in the future for all the new hires, which was in jeopardy. So that was a very important piece of legislation we passed too, and we didn't turn into Wisconsin either by doing that, which is wonderful. You know, people said, you know, as you know, in Wisconsin, they're ripping up their marble floors in the Capitol, and people said, are you afraid that's going to happen? And we said, well, no, Arizona doesn't have, we don't have marble floors. We don't have marble floors in the Capitol, no. We don't even own our own Capitol building, so no. But in any event, but very important legislation. So again, we couldn't have done at least those things without the numbers we had. So it's very important to get behind your good conservative Republican candidate and get him in, and we can do more of these things. Of course, we passed a lot of great pro-life legislation, a lot of great school choice legislation, and things of the sort. Personally, what I worked on a lot was I had a truth in spending bill that kind of says, well, you can't spend more than what you've got. Governor vetoed it for some reason. We're still not really sure why, but we're going to bring that bill back to next session too. I'm on 5 committees in the Senate, which is kind of a lot. Education, government reform, and appropriations. I chair a subcommittee of appropriations, and I'm the vice chair of border security. So I wanted to really make sure when I got there, I come from a family of teachers, that I wanted to help correct our education system. And I wrote a bill last session that I ultimately held because, well, it's kind of a big bill in the terms of there's a lot of hands that need to be on it before we can get it out there. So I'm going to introduce it this session. It's an actual legitimate performance pay bill for teachers. You know, I've always said from day one, people want to say, look, what's wrong with our education system? You know, why are you guys cutting education? Because we did. We had to cut education. And then they'll say, why did you cut health care? We said, when we worked on the budget, we said, well, let's look at it. Healthcare and education count for about 75% of the budget. What would you like us to cut, right? So we had to make cuts there. But we know it's not class dollars and it's not class size that make the children learn. It is the quality of the person at the front of the room and then parental involvement to back them up. That's what we know works. So I wrote a bill. We're going to take all that Prop 301 money that we willy-nilly spend and we don't know for what reason teachers get this bonus over here and the teachers get this bonus over here. This bill is going to have a nice scale on how does that teacher measure up to the standards that teacher is supposed to perform at, and if they exceed them, they're going to get paid a lot more. And the idea is if you actually start paying teachers, I don't know, what they're worth and then more, we will do 2 things. We will gravitate more good teachers back into the profession because I know a lot have left because they're grossly underpaid. And then we're going to eliminate the bad ones that are there because they're not going to reach their bonus. Yes, fire away.
I'm a teacher.
Good.
So,
exactly why we held the bill. I'm working with all of our superintendents, many principals, teachers, and whatnot. It's going to be a per pupil performance based. It's going to be based on where the kid came in. The big problem I'm getting from teachers is that my brother's a teacher here in Arizona, my sister, my mother-in-law, my wife. The problem is, let's say you're a 5th grade teacher. You get your kid in first day of class. They're at a 3rd grade level because they got pushed through the system. They don't want to hold anybody back anymore. So now that teacher has, in essence, a 3rd or 4th grader. They got prepared to be a 6th grader. They're already in the hole. So what this model is going to do, it's going to measure the person where are they at day 1, and then where did they get to at the end of the school year.
So who's going to be in charge of tracking that? That seems like a monumental task.
And I can spend the long, maybe we'll talk afterwards.
Okay,
The bill is,
it seems the same as no child left behind.
believe me it isn't. Yeah, believe me it isn't. And basically what we want to do is make sure that through a series of different, we'll look at AIM scores, we'll look at the year-end score, we'll look at the in-class test, then we'll take in other factors. We'll do observations and attendance and little things like that too. But we'll just make this nice little pie with all these different curriculum. It's not based solely on AIMS, it's not based solely on a standardized test. We want to make sure that wasn't the case. We can spend a lot of time talking about it. But the idea behind it is, if you're a teacher doing your job, right, and teaching your children, you should be receiving a much larger bonus than you're getting now. If you're a teacher that isn't doing those things, you will not be receiving a bonus as big as you probably are getting now. It's that simple. But it's going to be fair, again, family of teachers, it's going to be fair to the teacher, but it's going to be a good barometer on how that teacher is measured. Okay? Look for it, it'll be good, I promise.
Just don't put more work onto the teachers, like as far as keeping track of all those things.
That's right. And believe me, we've had a lot of hands on deck on this one, so rest assured. So let me kind of fire through everything else, and we'll take a bunch of questions at the end. My main focus, people ask me, especially when I campaign, they said, why is Arizona broke? And I said, well, let's see. We spend about an average of close to $3 billion with a B dollars a year on free stuff for illegal aliens. Yeah. Did you know that? Education, healthcare, and imprisonment costs alone account for about $3 billion of what the state of Arizona spent last year. People say, why are we broke? I said, let me figure out why, right? So one of my main focuses was on illegal immigration. And I will say, tell me your problem, and I can probably point to illegal immigration as a reason why it's a part of your problem. I'm not going to pin everything on the backs of illegal immigration, but it is a major problem for just about any industry or problem this state faces. Budget problems, I just named it. Education problems, why don't you look at our K-12 system? Rumor has it about a third of it is illegal. Who's paying for it? They just come here to work. A third of the national prison system, illegal aliens. Okay? Right? So, what I did, I wrote a few pieces of legislation, hopefully try to fix some of this stuff. One that kind of will affect teachers in their classrooms is, as you know, Superintendent Huppendahl came down to Tucson. We know all the big problems down there that Tucson Unified is having with some of their curriculum. And I'm sure you know this. We have video evidence of children coming across the border, getting on our buses that we pay for, going to school, being taught by the people that we pay for, getting back on the bus, and going across the border back home. We know it happens. It happens now. Well, I wrote a bill to hopefully curb that, and this bill just says when any student enrolls, they must show that they actually live in the state. Boy, what a novel idea, right? You must actually live in the state, not a citizen. I'll get to that in a second. But you have to show that you live in the state. And we think that, and I work with the Department of Education and Superintendent Huppendahl and on that, so that bill's going to take effect. So hopefully that is going to solve some of the problem, especially that we see down in Pima County, Yuma County, and places like that. If you remember, there was that the infamous night in the Senate where we had 5 immigration bills up. Remember that night? And all 5 immigration bills died. They got voted down that night in the Senate. of the five were mine. Okay? And we had Russell Pierce that had some, and then we had, some. One of the ones I had took it a step further, the education one. I said, well, now I want to prove that you're a citizen. Anybody that we're going to pay for in our school system, the day they enroll, they need to show that they are a U.S. citizen. Yeah? Pardon?
Or legal immigrant.
Or legal immigrant. Right? That they're here, that they're supposed to be here. Your friends in the Republican Senate, for some reason, voted it down. It was about a split vote.
Well, maybe now that Alabama did it, maybe you guys.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And then you saw what the Supreme Court upheld. The United States Supreme Court upheld our employer sanction laws. They're going to uphold 1070. They're going to uphold the Alabama. This is a states' right issue. So I said, gee whiz, we spend about $1.5 billion a year, on free education for illegals. Why? We're broke. We're firing teachers left and right. We're closing schools. We don't have the money. That was one of the 5 bills that was voted down. I'm going to bring that one back. Second bill, remember that whole thing I talked about? Education, healthcare, and imprisonment costs kind of made up of that $3 billion pie we spend on. And I said, all right, let's go to the next step. What's our healthcare system look like? Our emergency. You been in an emergency room lately? Yeah. Do you know we spend about $800 million a year on free healthcare for illegals in the state of Arizona? Okay. Do you know that the governor just cut about 250,000 people off the Medicaid, the access program that we have here? Because why? We're broke. We don't have any money. So we're cutting our own citizens off Medicaid, but still giving free care to illegals. Why? I don't know.
Send the bill to Mexico.
No, I don't know. So I wrote a bill that says, here's what we're going to do. When you go to an emergency, you know how any of us go to the emergency room when the first thing you get is the big clipboard shoved right in your face? It says, I want to know everything about you. All right? I said, well, gee, when they're doing that, if you have reasonable suspicion that the person is not here legally, and I gave about 20 points, driver's license, social security card, healthcare card, identification card, I mean, pick something, an address, anything, a bill, anything that you can say, okay, this person's reasonable. Okay, good. If you're not sure, or if you look at this list of just any common, item that I put on the list, and they don't pass it, and the typical amount says no English, you go like this, and they let them in. I mean, right? If you can't reasonably suspect that the person is not a U.S. citizen, I said, I want you to do one of two things. You're still going to give them care. We can't deny care. Thank you, Mtala. We're still going to give them care. But I want the admin person to A, pick up the phone and call a local authority. Okay, sheriff's office, ICE if you want. I just said local authority. And B, make a report. On this day, we treated this person. They provided us no information whatsoever to prove that they're a legal citizen or in the country legally. File it. At the end of the year, let's see how much is the bill. Because the problem is when people say how many illegals are in our school system, we say, don't know. How much should we spend on illegals for healthcare? Don't know. How many illegals are in the country? Don't know. They don't count. They have no method of knowing. We can only make a best guess. So, again, sound like a reasonable bill to me. That was bill number 2 that died that night. And yes, we're going to bring that one back. And then we have some other good legislation too that did pass, but those are some of the highlights. Now, one bill that did pass that I'm thankful for, and kind of what you touched on earlier was, sticking with the same theme here, legal immigration. We said, well, let's go to the root of the problem. Why are they coming here? Well, we know it's jobs. We know it's the free system they can leech off of. We know that. So I said, well, where's our border fence? We don't have a fence. We have a fence. We don't really have a fence. Okay? So whose job is it to build a fence? Federal government's job. They have not built the fence correctly. Correctly. So we said, well, we need a fence. Right? Look what Rob Krentz murdered on his ranch. Look at all the ranchers, and just talk to them. See what life is like down there. So we said, well, Arizona doesn't have the money to build a fence. We're broke. We all know that. So what are we going to do? So I wrote a bill, Senate Bill 1406. It says, we're going to start a website. BuildTheBorderFence.com. That's the website. And we're going to put it out to the country to say, this is not Arizona's problem. This is America's problem. Okay? We need all hands on deck here if we want to actually, quote, secure our country. So July 20th, Bill passed. Website launched. First day the website went up. Donations from people in all 50 states across the country. First day. Awesome. Awesome. What a sign. What a sign. You name the media outlet, I was on it. You know, from Fox, CNN, I mean, you name it. We had the whole country know about this thing. And now, again, it's only about a month or two old. We've raised up over about $300,000. And in about 2 weeks, we're going to launch a national campaign to go across the country with it big time. So we expect a lot more funds being raised. But people said, well, how are we going to do this? It costs millions and millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions to do this. So I said, well, we're not the federal government. We're going to think a little bit smarter with our money. So what I've done, I've contacted several fence companies, ones that make border fences. The world's largest fence manufacturer, Beta Fence, who's built dozens of miles on the border of the fence, is pledged to either donate a few miles of the fence or give it to us at just a scrap price cost. We're going to be able to put some of this stuff up at a fraction of what it should cost because, oh, by the way, I wrote in the bill, labor's expensive, right? You know, we need people digging ditches. So I wrote in the bill that we're going to use inmate labor.
There you go.
They run across the border.
That's right. Or they can build it and when they're all done, they're already, right? Already back home. So we have inmate labor in the bill. Who's going to help? You and I pay for Department of Correction inmates all year long, so let's get something out of it. We're going to use them. Now, before people say, well, inmates, are you crazy? Do you know that inmates work at the Capitol building every day? They do our landscaping. They build half our furniture. They do a lot of stuff down there. And they do it in cities all over the state. So it's not like this utilitarian grunt force on chain gangs, so to speak. Some of it is actually skilled labor. Douglas, Arizona, they use inmates to help build the fence down there. So it's not it's not out of the realm of their help. So we're going to get them down there. I've already had construction companies stepping up on board saying, we're going to help. Free. We'll bring our machinery down there. We'll help put it in the ground when you get it. Okay? It's kind of like Extreme Home Makeover Edition, Extreme Home, right, Border Edition, I guess, right? Yeah, we're getting all hands on deck to donate and chip in and get this done. Why? It is America's problem, not just Arizona's problem. So I'm very pleased to say that bill is going great. If you didn't know about the site, what's the name of the site?
BuildTheBorderFence.com.
Thank you. Now, I'm not going to ask you who donated yet, because I would just assume all of you have, but just in case you haven't. Just in case you haven't. If you go to BuildTheBorderFence.com, everybody who donates gets your own certificate from the state of a numbered certificate from the state of Arizona, thanking you for your donation to help keep America safe. Go online and donate. I don't care if it's $5 or $500. Do your part, donate. We've got thousands of people across the country. Do you know that there's been military men and women in bases overseas who have donated to this cause? They're all fighting for us, and they know this is a problem. We live here. Get on board. Email off to your friends and family. BuildTheBorderFence.com. Get your certificate. Put it in a frame. Be proud of it, but do your part. Arizona has to take the lead on this, right? We've got to take the lead on this. So please go out and do your part. And we're going to secure this border once and for all. When you look at that border, you know, it's a shame. We have people like President Obama and Janet Napolitano leading this charge for us in, quote, securing our country. Obama stood on that border back in May. Remember in El Paso? And he stood up and gave that famous alligator in the moat speech, right?
Yeah.
He made it, he uttered a line. And the line was this, quote, the fence is now basically complete. End quote. Speaking of the border fence. Kind of saying, like, I already built it. What do you guys want from me, right? You know, what do you want now? A moat and alligators already built it. Border is about 2,000 miles long. The United States-Mexican border, about 2,000 miles long. How many miles on the border actually have a fence on it? Do you have any idea?
850.
About 750. Just under 700. Actually, about 680. Just under 700.
Including San Diego.
The whole border. Which means only about 1/3, less than 700 miles of a 2,000 mile line has a fence on it. So tell me what basically complete means when you've done 1/3 of the job. And when you look at the 1/3, most of it is what we call a vehicle barrier fence. You know what a vehicle barrier is? Looks like a big X in the ground, like a Normandy style, right? You know, barrier. So you might not be able to drive a car through it, but you know what you can do through it? Walk right through it. Because there's space in the park, just walk right through it. We have mounted cameras in the desert, constantly. Just watching people walk. And that's where there is a fence. Mind you, 2/3 of the board does not even have a fence, right? So it's a problem. It's a problem. And I tell people this. People ask me, I live in Maine. Why should I care about the border? Okay, what is the problem on the border? I keep hearing the border. What's the problem? And I tell people quickly, I tell them, well, here's the problem on the border. Forget the 12 to 20 million illegal aliens in this country now that you and I pay for. Let's forget that for a second. Oh, and by the way, only about 500,000 of them live in Arizona. Where do the other 19.5 million live? They live in your state. Right? They live everywhere else in the country. I had a sheriff call me from North Carolina saying, I'm dying over here. He goes, I am planning a march on Washington with every sheriff in this area to combat this problem, illegal immigration problem, that I'm facing out east. I said, I know you are. Okay? So we have the illegal alien invasion. That's first. Second, violence, gangs, right? Over 40,000 deaths, murders, and killings have taken place on that border, both sides, in the last 5 years. Where's your human rights activists? Where are they? Where are they? No. Agent Terry, Border Patrol, shot dead with, you can thank the Obama administration, guns from the Fast and Furious operation. Right? It's ridiculous. Then you look at the gangs that come over. Then you look at the drugs that come over. Then you look at But then the smoking gun that nobody talks about is the terrorist element that lives on the border. You know, our own FBI Director Mueller, our own FBI Director testified in Congress. He is very concerned with the terrorist element that comes across that border. We have evidence that Hezbollah and its operations have come across the border. In Arizona alone, a radical Muslim cleric stuffed in the trunk of a car, driven through the border where there's no fence. Thankfully, we caught him. That's what's happening. So that's what I tell everybody why you should care about the border. The illegal problem, right? That just overall affects our social services and our system every day. The drug, the violence, the gangs. And then the unspoken terrorist element. And it's like, when do we get serious about this? When do we get serious about it? Right? Now's the time to get serious about it. We have, in 2 seconds. 2 seconds, please. Presidential candidates. Did you watch the last debate? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Michelle Bachmann. We need to build a fence on every mile, on every yard, on every foot, on every inch of the border. Mitt Romney. Of course we need a fence, was his quote. Herman Cain, strong advocate. Newt Gingrich, Santorum. They all say it, right? Beautiful. We've got to get them talking about it even more. But it needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed. So that being said, those are some of the things that we worked on and did. Next session coming up is looking to be very promising. We've got a lot of great bills lined up that I think is gonna we're gonna put another great couple jobs bill in there, trying to really go after that property tax for business owners, lower that burden on them, and do a lot of great things. A lot more pro-life legislation coming up too. I'm gonna leave you with this. He doesn't live in your district. He doesn't live in your county. All of us need to be supporting Senate President Russell Pierce right now. You can say, how do I do that? I live out here. Call his office. I'm willing to drive down to Mesa one day and let me know when you're doing a campaign walk. Can I make phone calls from home? Can I just send them an email of encouragement? Well, you've got to stand behind this man. I say he's the best legislator in the state. He is our leader. He is the reason why all these things that I just talked about were able to happen. We've got to support him. So please go out and support him. It's very important. So that being said, I really want to thank y'all for having me. It is just my honor to be here. Again, it's people like you that make this possible. And this is having good, strong conservatives in our legislature, having the numbers that we have. Do not stop. Obama doesn't want us here. He doesn't like Arizona very much. You haven't figured that out. He's got a lot of money that's going in this state to get rid of people like Russell Pierce. As we see now, they're buying the recall. George Soros et al. They don't want people like me here. They don't want people like all the other people that stand up for the rule of law. The people need to have their voices heard. You cannot stop. Don't rest on the laurels of 2010. It's only going to get worse. We've got to go and fight, keep doing what you're doing. But I want to say God bless you all. Thank you so much for just doing what you do. And thank you for having me. And I'll certainly take any questions. You got a question, sir, yes?
Yeah. We hope that, your stand. We hope we get a committee hearing during the regular session down here. We still have to watch rare, that would be a rarity to education or immigration. If you get a.
You want to watch it? Everything is videotaped. Go to the legislation website, go to the azledge.gov. You can watch every hearing live as it tapes. Is that what you're asking?
Right. What's this latest proposal that Obama's criminals, Mexican criminals who cross the border will now be allowed to stay?
Right.
Can you comment a bit about that?
It's his backdoor way of getting to amnesty again. You all must understand this, and I know you know this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Amnesty will destroy this country, okay? Now, I'm the very first person to say, I do not blame the illegal alien. I don't blame them one bit for wanting to come here. If I lived where they live, and I just had to walk a few miles north, and I got everything I ever wanted for free, I got a free education and a free medical, gold-plated medical plan, and I got unemployment, and I got WIC, and I got everything. I didn't have to do anything other than show up. Gee, I might do it too. I don't blame the illegal. I don't blame them at all. And I don't care where they come from. People always call you racist when we talk about illegal immigration. You get used to it. I don't care if they're French Canadian, I don't care if they're Mexican, I don't care if they're Chinese, I don't care what they are. If I'm paying for you, I got a problem with you. So first, don't blame the illegal. Second, it's his backdoor way into amnesty. And if you grant amnesty, let's take that number, 12 to 20 million illegals in this country. Let's split it in the middle, 15 million, let's say. You know what's going to happen when you grant amnesty to 15 million people? Did you know that they can bring their family members over too and now they're citizens? Did you know that? So if each person brings about 4 to 5 family members over, which they would, your 15 million turned into about 100 million, pretty darn quick. What do you do with the 100 million new people who, by and large, don't assimilate, use 3 times the social services than citizens do? What do? You go bankrupt, even worse. And then I asked John McCain this question. I said, does anybody ask President Obama if when he does grant amnesty, as he tries, what that will do to the Obamacare numbers? We already know it's going to cost us trillions we don't have. You're going to throw another 100 million new people on free health care? We go broke. We go broke.
There'll be a new presidential election in Mexico. Cardenas is leaving, he's term limited. He's a conservative values guy. I guess the circumstances tradition kind of overwhelmed him. Dupree gets in again, liberal. You know something about that, and thanks so very much for giving us your
No, my pleasure. No, I didn't get the question. What was the question?
Well,
Anybody hear that?
the next one is
what you think about Mexico's presidential situation.
in Congress. Is that coming up this fall? Presidential.
You mean their elections over there?
Mexico.
They're corrupt as anything. Let's hope we get a decent person over there.
Okay.
No. You know, Calderon had the audacity to stand on our Congress floor and chastise the United States of America. And you know, when they talk about, do you know that Mexico built their own border fence? Anybody care about that? Keeping out the Guatemalans? Did you know that? Anybody care about that? Are they racist? No. But we are if we want to build it, right?
Exactly.
Next, yes.
Just to play devil's advocate, I'm a big supporter of Russell Pierce and the things he's done since you have mentioned the bill that you want to put for education to get illegal aliens out of the classroom.
Yep.
Before that, you had mentioned it's 1/3 of our student body. So
Estimated.
yes, okay.
And that was maybe,
Estimate
the best estimate is pre-1070. We know a lot has moved since then, but yes.
So
Estimated.
that's obviously they're going to put a lot of teachers out of work, and unionized teachers are not going to need jobs anymore if we don't have these students that are a burden that shouldn't get them in the first place. So you're going to get a lot of
Yeah.
flack from the teachers union. What kind of things do you expect?
Yeah, a couple things about that. The bill didn't kick anybody out of the school. just so you know that. This bill doesn't say, oh, you're illegal, see ya. Can't do that, right? There's a lot of reasons why you can't. Federal law can't do it. The bill just says, I want to know how many are in our school system. So when you apply, when you register each year, and you say, do you have a driver's license, or to the parents, or do you have a birth certificate, do you have social security card? No. Are you here legally? We're not going to throw you out, all right? We will know, and we just want to get a count, because we can't throw them out. We can't. So yeah, if that wasn't clear, the bill does not remove them from the school system. We will get a count on it, and rest assured there will be a lot of pressure on the federal government, and then some. That's what we call an unfunded mandate. We have to pay for it, and we don't have the money to pay for it. So there's a lot of things you can do with the information. Okay. Second thing, we keep hearing we want smaller class sizes. Fine, let's give it to our teachers. Why can't we have the same amount of teachers with a smaller class size? That's what we want, right? Teachers are complaining. Some teachers have 40 kids in their class. Gee, if you took about a third of them out, they still got a healthy class. It's not like they have 3 people in the class anymore. I'd like to keep every teacher where they're
Well,
at.
some districts want to hang on that.
Okay? And this is the reason. I'm going to segue for 2 seconds here. I know I'm running out of time. The reason these bills died, these immigration bills didn't pass, in large part was because the Chamber of Commerce wrote a nice little letter to all the legislators that said, don't pass these bills because of some of the reasons you said. The business community won't like it, and it's going to give Arizona a black eye, and I said, so basically we don't want to do it because we might lose a little bit of profits over here in our business. So now we're doing what we call putting profits over patriotism. Yeah, we care more about the bottom line than we care about defending the rule of law and defending the people of the state and the country. Last time I checked, that is our #1 priority, to defend and protect the people of the country as an elected official. That's our job. Okay? I said, I don't care what the Chamber of Commerce says. I don't care what the teachers union says. Right? We have to protect the people of America. It's that simple. First. And we're hemorrhaging money to a bunch of people that broke the law, that don't deserve it, and we just keep giving hand over fist money to them while we're taking it out of the people that actually made it. It's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong.
How did you actually do the pension reform? Did you raise retirement ages, or what did you do?
Good question. We did it on new hires. So for existing people, we left it. We did, their investment program was just ridiculous, so they weren't making any investments they needed to. So we did a lot of things on the new hire end of it, because obviously the folks that also said, well, wait a minute, we have a constitutional contract with you to get certain things from you. So we wanted to make sure they were kind of left whole. But then yes, we had to have a little bit more paying rate. Employers and some of the models are paying up to 45% of their paycheck going into their pension. Then I said, you're not going to be an employer anymore. Employer can't afford you anymore. So we made it a little bit more even. A little bit more contribution, a little less from the employer, made it even. But we did things like that, and we did it on the back end hires. We may do that on the personnel one. This session, there is a personnel reform. So that was mainly police and fire. In this session, the governor wants to bring in everybody else. So I think that's going to be looked at in that model too, yeah. Yes, sir.
I just want to make 2 comments. Up until several years ago, we had 2 trauma centers here. We only have one, which is UMC. The other one closed down largely because they took care of and gave medical attention to a lot of the legal aliens, and they were not getting their dues back from the state. So we lost one trauma center several years ago because of UDAs, or legal immigrants. The second thing I want to say is, when a UDA comes over here, I don't care if he stays in Arizona or he makes his way up to Michigan, Ohio, or New York, in order for him to get a job, him or her to get a job, they have to supply a social security number. Carolyn, let's say they use your social security number. 2 years from now, the federal government's going to come after you for the money they made because you didn't pay that tax on there. So it just does not affect Arizonans. It affects everybody as a whole. And we need to get a grip on it. Yeah. In reference to your fence, I agree with it, I support it, but they'll either go over it or they'll go under it. So we'll need sensors out in the desert, so if they get under it and they trip a sensor, we can respond.
Great point. Thank you for reminding me. 2 seconds. People always ask me too, well, the fence is the answer then. That's the smoking gun. Well, no. It's not the answer. It's part of the answer. You must have law enforcement present on the border. And I give this example. I said, think of a prison. I don't care. Pick Alcatraz. Pick any prison that you know. You get the highest, most impenetrable prison wall, fence, barbed wire, whatever. But if you don't got a man in the tower with a gun like this, they eventually get out.
How long is the Great Wall of China?
That's what happened. That's what happened. So you've got to have law enforcement and technology and everything on the board. You're 100% right, and that's absolutely part of something that we're going to initiate with the new state guard that will sign into law as well. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You know, you named all, you've listed all these accomplishments you guys have done, but unfortunately, we've got this over-districting thing going on, and it really affect on, I mean, what are we gonna do if our state turns blue, you know, federally and locally? I mean, what are your thoughts and how do you think it'll play out?
It's a mess, and the so-called independent, as we know, is not an independent. Here's what you have to do with the IRC. You've got to attend the meetings, and you've got to tell them where you want to stay. If you're part of your district now, and that's where you want to stay, say, don't cut me out of this district. I want to stay here, right? I want a fair draw. Arizona can't turn blue just because of the amount of registered Republicans we have. What they can do, though, is they can pit 2 districts against each other. So let's say you have, what happened this way, we don't live each other. Me and Russell Pierce. Well, we don't like either one of them. Let's put them in the same district. Now one of them got to go. I mean, so they do a lot of that. So that's why you've got to say, I want to stay in my boundary. Don't give me part of this district 40 miles away. I want to stay where I am. So you've got to stay on them and keep the pressure on them. Yeah. It's very important, though. It's a huge issue. Yes, sir.
I have 2 quick statements and 1 question. First, I appreciate you coming down here and taking your time to talk with us.
It's my pleasure.
For
Thank
you.
you.
We do appreciate you taking the time to get to know us here. So that's the first statement. Second statement is the whole aspect of utilizing inmate labor to help put them to work and help to defend and protect our borders is an excellent idea. And I'd like to encourage you to continue to support that because it's not just about protecting the border, it's also about making those inmates be in a position where they can also get back acclimated into society and productive when they get released. And then my question is, last night we had a nice little get-together at the GOP headquarters about how money is funneled from the state to local districts when it comes to education. You said you're on the education committee. We basically came to the understanding that the system is broken in terms of how money is distributed to the schools, the localized schools, and how inequitable it really is. My question to you is, would you be willing to take on the responsibility as a committee member to look at what we can do to reform the way we fund our schools statewide?
Yeah, and before I get that, inmate labor, when you go to your city council meetings, tell them. I want inmates in our community cleaning up and weed whacking and mowing lawn because it saves the cities just untold thousands every year. So if your city's broke, tell them to start utilizing labor. To your question, we're very careful. We're not the federal government that want to just take all the states' rights. In this case, we think the counties and the cities and the school districts and the school boards are pretty smart people and can kind of manage their own purse strings. We can not only have a budget, but I don't think the legislature is in a position where we want to say to each school district, here's where you're going to spend, I don't know if this is what you're asking, but here's where you're going to spend your money and your school's, that school's going to get this much and that one's going to get this much. And I mean, that's why you have school boards and local officials that are responsible for all your city council and mayors and all
Just so
that.
that I can clarify my question,
Yeah.
it appears as though what the federal government does to the states, the state is doing to the schools.
In terms of?
And the way they're manipulating not only the way money is funded, but also even in the direction which they educate. So both issues.
Are you saying kind of get the legislature off our back?
Well, I think that we have a common principle of saying that education is important and we want to be able to provide a basic line of education for all citizens because we have an investment in that. But the problem
first, that's what we want. We want more local control. Your analogy, though, for the states and the federal government and the state to the counties is not apt, though. The federal government answers to the states and powers the ribbon from the states.
Okay.
So the states have every authority to tell the federal government, here's what it is. In the states, the counties are subdivisions of the state. It's the opposite. So when you say you're treating us the same way that that's inverse. The state has the authority to do that. So first and foremost, that's one, the real big difference. But second, I'm all for local control. I'd like to see each superintendent get their share of the budget and then disseminate it as they see fit. I'd like them to make those decisions. Those principals make those decisions, not the federal government, and certainly not the legislature. That's why we want more local control everywhere.
Could I use an example, just to kind of clarify?
Sure.
Okay, we were told that there's this amount of money, set amount of money that goes to the state from all the counties and from all the taxes. And then they decide how they're going to, distribute that down to the schools. And one of the things that was said was, we're not going to raise your taxes, and we're going to reduce the amount of spending because we're trying to balance the budget. Okay? But what happened was that there was a shifting of responsibility from the commercial sector to the residential sector to pay for those services. And what ended up happening is people were like, I didn't vote for a raise in taxes or more money to be pulled away from me, and yet they're seeing more of their check go out. So it just seemed as though we were, like I said, the state has the ability to pass certain legislation that impacts how the money is being funded down to the local level.
Well, in that sense, in a budgetary sense, well, of course that's true. The state manages the budget, right? And education is a big part of the budget. So if you're saying, how do we derive that number? Well, sure. Local taxes, property taxes, state taxes, sales taxes, all that goes into effect. But again, the state has the authority to say, and again, it's an inverse relationship with the states and federal government, that we can dictate, well, here's where this tax money is going to come from or whatnot in certain cases. Just know this, please know this. It is my position, and I can speak for the Republican Senate, because we all agree on this. We want the cities and towns and counties to have their local, raise their tax money, and we'll just disseminate what we would rather do, and what I will work for, especially in the committee, is we'll work for to get the money funneled to a central, more local level. I'd love to start with the superintendent, county superintendent, district superintendent, and then have them responsible for where the money goes in terms of collecting money, who pays what, and this and this. That's also
So
an adequate
we're looking to simplify the system and bring a point of accountability local.
That's exactly where it belongs.
And
Because when your school district has a problem, don't come knocking on the legislature. You should be able to knock on your superintendent's door. And if you don't like him, fire him.
Right.
Don't vote him in. But that's where local control comes
What's
from.
coming from their end is they're saying, we don't control it, and they're kicking
Yeah, well, don't believe everything you hear that way.
I'm not saying that.
No, I understand that.
But you said you were on the committee, and that's why.
That's right. Yeah, you have a marriage there where again the state can only dictate the budget, but your local control ultimately is going to decide what schools are funded with. That's where the local control is. We can dictate the entire budget, but we don't micromanage it where it goes. You can't. It's impossible.
All right.
Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay.